Impact doesn't require a title. I want to say that again because almost everything in the college admissions ecosystem, the forums, the advice columns, the how I got into Stanford videos, will try to convince you otherwise. But impact does not require a title. It requires care and consistency. That's it. Some of the most powerful contributions ever made by a high school student looked unimpressive on paper. No founder of, no president of, no nonprofit started from scratch, no patent filed, no international award. Just a person who kept showing up for something or someone that mattered to them week after week. This week, we name what that actually looks like, and we find yours. Hi, I'm Dr. Heather Case. Welcome to week 7 of Stressed Out to Stand Out. Last week, we connected your curiosities to majors. The week before that, we found your flashlight. Today, we step all the way back and ask the biggest question of this arc. Not what do you want to study, not what do you want to do for work, but what do you want to give? Not in a corny, abstract way, in a specific, honest, already happening way. Because you're already giving, you just haven't been told to notice it yet. There's this story that the college admissions world has been telling for about 20 years that I really need to push back on. That story goes, to stand out, you have to do something big. Start the nonprofit, win the National Science Fair, get the research publication, launch the company, and whatever you do, make sure it has a measurable outcome, a number, a scale, a reach that you can put on the activity section of your Common App. Here's what that story misses. The students who build extraordinary applications and the students who go on to do meaningful things in the world are almost never the ones who did the big, impressive thing. They're the ones who did one consistent thing, repeatedly, over time, for real reasons. Selective colleges aren't looking for a founder of, they're looking for evidence of contribution. The two are not the same. Contribution is what you give. Founder is one shape that contribution can take. One, but there are thousands of other shapes. Let me give you some examples of the strongest activities I've seen on college applications across 20 years. Tutoring the same 2 kids every week for 3 years. Translating for a family member who couldn't speak English. Showing up to a community garden every Saturday morning. Visiting a great aunt in a nursing home weekly for 2 years. Running a free coding workshop for younger students at a library. Driving siblings to school every single morning so a parent could get to work on time. None of those have a title. None of them started a club. None of them have measurable outcomes that fit neatly into a bullet point. All of them do have impact. Deep, undeniable, lasting impact on specific human beings. And every one of them was written about in a way that made an admissions reader stop and pay attention. Here's the metaphor for this week. Picture a drop hitting still water. The first ripple is small, just around the drop. The second's a little wider, the third wider still. Eventually, the ripple reaches the far end of the pond. That's how real impact works. It doesn't start at the edge of the pond. It doesn't start at the outer ring of the world. It starts at the drop, and the drop is small. The drop is local. The drop is usually one act of care, one person, one moment, one decision to show up. When I work with students on their applications, I ask them to draw their ripples, 5 circles. Smallest at the center, the innermost circle is yourself. The next ring out is your family. The next is your closest friends. The next is your community, and the outermost ring is your wider world. Most students, when they look at their activities list, they've tried to show colleges only what they're doing in the outermost ring, the wider world ring. They've left the inner circles blank. So the outer activities feel hollow, like they exist for the application, not for the people they're supposedly helping. The applications that land the best do the opposite. They show the drop first. They show the care that starts at the center, the pattern of small acts over time. The ripples are a consequence of who the student already was, not a marketing strategy built in 11th grade. If you want to make an impact that reads as real, because it is real, drop honestly. Drop where you already are. Let the ripples come from there. Let me tell you about a student I'll call Trevon. Trevon came to me with a list of activities that didn't impress him. He'd been tutoring 2 middle schoolers, the same 2 kids, every Tuesday and Thursday for almost 3 years. He thought it was the smallest, least impressive thing on his application. He kept asking me what he could add, what he could start, what he could do that would really matter. So I asked him to tell me about the tutoring, the kids' first names, the first session, the hardest moment, the funniest moment. He started talking and he did not stop for at least 15 minutes. One of the boys had been reading a year and a half below grade level when they started. By the time Trevon was a senior, that boy was on grade level. And the boy even asked Trevon if he could keep tutoring him over the summer on his own because he wanted to. Trevon didn't see any of this as impact. He saw it as just Tuesday and Thursday. He thought impact required a scale, a program he'd founded, a nonprofit with a name, a measurable outcome that he could put on a post-it board or add to a bullet on his application. Then I asked him one question. What would have happened to that boy if you hadn't shown up on those Tuesdays and Thursdays for the past 3 years? The answer was a much smaller version of what did happen. Maybe nothing. Maybe a year and a half behind grade level still. Maybe a trajectory that bent differently. That conversation became the spine of Trevon's college essay. Not a story about him being a hero, not a story about the program he built, a story about the small, repeated act of showing up and what showing up meant to one specific person over 3 years. He got into his top choice school. The admissions reader who admitted him shared with me, I want to be tutored by this kid. Tuesday and Thursday, week after week counted. It counted more than almost anything else on that application. Trevon just needed someone to help him see it. So 3 things for you to do this week. 1, draw your ripples. Right now in your journal, 5 circles. Smallest at the center, yourself, family, close friends, community, and the wider world. In each circle, write one thing you've contributed to in the past year. Could be tiny, could be a single act that happened once, or it could be something so regular that you've stopped counting it. Don't perform. Don't filter for what's impressive. Just write what's actually true. 2, look at where your circles are full and where they're empty. The full ones are showing you where you already give care. That's real data about who you are and where you naturally show up. Don't read it as a verdict. Read it as information. Data points. 3, pick one ripple you'd like to grow. Not 5, just 1. Then name one specific action that you can take in the next 2 weeks to add to that circle. Could be reaching out to the person you used to help and offering again. Could be committing to one Saturday morning somewhere. Could be a single conversation with a neighbor you've been meaning to check in on. Small, concrete, but real. This is the work that turns an activities list from a list of items into a story of who you are. And one reminder before we close, you are already contributing right now, today, before you've done anything for a college application. You're contributing to people you love, to people you barely know, to classrooms and group chats and dinner tables and younger siblings and teammates and neighbors. Question isn't whether you make an impact. You do already. The question is whether you notice it, whether you're willing to count the small things as real, whether you'll write about them honestly when the time comes, not the way you think a college wants to hear them, but the way they actually happened. The smallest, truest thing you do every week is probably worth more on a college application than the most impressive thing you forced. That's not a consolation prize. That's what 20 years of watching applications land and not land has taught me. Notice what you already do. Count it, because it counts. Notice what you already do. Count it, because it actually counts. Next week, week 8, we shift gears a little. We've spent 7 weeks building the inside of your application, who you are, what shapes you, what you love, what you give. Next week, we'll start looking outward. College fit. What kind of environment actually brings out the best in you, and how you communicate that to schools in a way that's both strategic and sincere. It's a big week, Subscribe so you don't miss it. But before you go, I want to remind you of something very important. You are so much more than your application. Your worth isn't measured by acceptance letters or rejection emails. I want you to know that your story matters. Tell it honestly, tell it bravely, and know that I am always here cheering you on. See you next week.